My family's Christmas was just a huge display of spending money. The tree alone cost more than what most people pay for a month of rent. They were completely certain that they knew what was best for everyone, especially for me. I just sat in the corner wearing a basic sweater and jeans. I watched my sister show off the keys to her new Porsche while her husband bragged about some new tech company he just bought. At 34, I had learned how to just occupy space without being noticed. I was there, but I looked totally average. My mom shouted at me from across the room like I was a servant. "Go get more wine, the expensive Bordeaux. Don't bring that cheap stuff from California," she said. As I sit here now with my coffee watching the world go by, I am surprised by how little we actually know about the people we are supposed to be close to. Where are you guys joining me from today? And what are you drinking? I always look forward to reading your stories in the comments. But let's get back to that Christmas dinner and the news my father was so excited to tell me. I stood up without saying anything. Being able to make quick decisions was always my best quality, even though the people in this house thought my silence meant I was weak. I walked toward the kitchen. My shoes made a clicking sound on the expensive wood floors that probably cost more than my very first apartment. I could hear them talking behind me. They all sounded so full of themselves. My sister's laugh was loud and sharp, like glass breaking. She was whispering something to her husband about my little consulting job. She told him it was a shame that I couldn't even afford a decent car. In the kitchen, I grabbed the heavy bottle of wine from the rack. I looked out the window and saw the moonlight hitting the hood of my 7-year-old Subaru. It was parked on the street, pushed to the curb to make room for my father's Lamborghini and my sister's Porsche. To them, that car was just a list of my failures. To me, it was a ghost. It was the perfect way to stay hidden while moving through DC without a security team when I needed to be invisible. I went back to the living room and poured the wine with a hand that didn't shake at all. I was the silent partner in their idea of a family, paying the emotional price while they threw away my dignity like it was pocket change. My mother took the glass without even looking at my face. My father was standing by the fireplace. At 65, he still acted like he was in a big business meeting, ready to shut down a competitor. He cleared his throat and the whole room went quiet. It was time for him to give a presentation. "Your mother and I have made a big decision about your house," my father announced. He didn't ask me. He didn't talk to me about it first. He just gave a verdict. I felt something cold and heavy in my stomach. I sat down, holding a cup of cheap grocery store coffee that I had made for myself. "My house?" I asked in a quiet voice. "That house in Arlington?" my mother said, waving her hand like she was shooing a bug away. "The one you never even go to. It's been sitting there for 4 years, just gathering dust and wasting money. It's not doing anything. It's a waste." "It isn't empty," I told her, keeping my voice steady. "I stay there every time I visit the Capitol." "You are never even in DC," my sister cut in, leaning back in her expensive chair. "You are always traveling for work, if we can even call it that. Doing whatever it is you consultants do in those poor countries. That house stays empty 330 days a year. It looks bad for the family's money." "We sold it," my father said, sounding very proud of himself. "We got a great price for it, too. $4,800,000. That's way more than it's worth. The person buying it wanted to close fast, so we took care of all the paperwork." The whole room felt like it was spinning. They didn't just cross a line, they completely destroyed it. I looked down at the coffee in my hand. "You sold my home without even asking me," I said. "Sandy, don't be so dramatic," my father told me, looking at his watch. "You signed that limited power of attorney 2 years ago, so I could take care of the taxes and the yard while you were off working in those faraway places. I just used it to sign off on a deal that was way too good to say no to. After the closing costs and our management fee of 20%, which is what people like us charge for our skills, you will get about $3,840,000. We will have a check ready for you by the new year." "A management fee," I said back to him. The words felt like metal in my mouth. "We did all the hard work, Sandy," my mother explained, talking to me like I was a little kid who didn't know how a piggy bank worked. "We found the person to buy it, set up the company for the sale, and did all the paperwork. In the real world, people get paid for what they know. You should be telling us thank you. We turned a house that wasn't doing anything into cash." This was how they made being mean seem normal. In their rich world, I wasn't a real person with rights or a job. I was just a bad investment. Because I didn't show off my money, they thought I didn't have any. Because I was helpful and quiet, they treated me like an item on a list they could trade. They didn't see their own daughter. They just saw a way to make money. I didn't yell. I didn't ask them why. I just put my cup down slowly and watched the steam come off my cheap coffee. This time, my anger wasn't loud. It was very cold. I rubbed my eyes, not because I was sad, but because I needed to see things clearly. This wasn't just a family fight. It was a math problem, and they had just started a debt they could never pay back. Across the room, my father was already looking at his tablet. His eyes were shining as he calculated that $960,000 fee they were taking from my life. He looked so happy with himself, totally sure of how smart he was. He had no idea he was counting money that was now a huge problem with the federal government. I watched them drink the Bordeaux I had just poured for them. In my mind, their laughing sounded like a clock counting down. This was the quiet regret of someone who sees everything. They were totally blind to the truth. For years, I had stood on the edge of their lives, keeping the walls up while they made fun of the foundation. I had been the one secretly putting money into their version of a family, giving them kindness that they had used up long ago. They thought they were the kings of business and the leaders of the family name, but they were actually living on a bill that I had been paying. In 2022, when my father's company was losing too much money during the market crash, it wasn't my sister's social media fame or my mother's high status that saved them. It was a secret loan from a private trust. My trust. When my sister needed money for the deposit on her huge wedding venue, the one she bragged about to my face, the cash just appeared without any name on it. I had spent 4 years trying to keep them safe. I kept my life a secret, not because I was embarrassed, but because my job required me to keep my distance to protect them. Putting them down as managers on the Arlington House Trust was supposed to be a nice thing. It was a safety net I gave them in case my high-level intelligence work ever went wrong. Now that they saw that trust as a waste of money, they had decided to sell it. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. My thumb went over an app that didn't even have a picture on it. It was a direct link to a private government computer. I didn't wait. I didn't ask anyone if it was okay. At exactly 12:05 a.m., I started the secrecy protocol. The screen gave off a cold blue light showing facts and numbers. I recorded the illegal break into a government asset. I marked the sale as a danger to a top-secret intelligence center. I watched the bar move across the screen. As I finished the report, my father looked up from his tablet and saw me. He gave me a look like he was better than me, as if he was happy I was finally doing what he wanted. I didn't smile back. I just looked at him like an auditor looking at a business report. They weren't surprised by what they did. They just thought I was too weak to ever stop them. But tonight, I was ending the subscription. The next few hours were all about my mother pretending to be a caring parent. I didn't talk to them anymore at the table, and they thought my silence meant I had given up. By the time I got to my safe house, a secure, high-end apartment I kept in the city, my phone was already shaking with messages from their online attacks. My mother had posted a family update on Facebook. It was a fake-looking photo of the Christmas tree with an empty chair in the front. Her caption said, "Some people forget who raised them. I am praying for clarity and maturity." The comments were already filling up with her friends calling me a bad person. They didn't see a daughter being robbed of $4,800,000. They saw a sweet mother being hurt by a mean child. This was her way of making me look like the bad guy so she could isolate me before the law showed up. Then the group chat started. My sister sent many messages very fast. She told me, "You are overreacting. It is just a house you never use. You should be happy our father got you over $3 million. Her husband added his own thoughts, talking down to me like I was a failing business. He said, "Your behavior is childish. You need to apologize for the mess you made for your parents." I sat at my desk and looked at the screen. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I took a picture of every message and every post. To them, this was a family fight. To me, it was just more evidence. Every mean thing they said went into my records. They were trying to make me look like a failure so they could feel okay about stealing $960,000 from me. They needed me to be a loser because if I was a success, then they were criminals. I wasn't being nice anymore. I watched them build their lives on sand, not knowing the water was coming in. I wasn't sad. I just saw things clearly. This wasn't a family falling apart. It was a balance sheet. Inside my laptop, the screen showed a different kind of morning, one made of facts and numbers. I ignored the shaking of my phone as my family kept texting the group chat. My eyes were on the black screen of my secret terminal. For 4 years, I had kept a low profile in Washington, staying in my house in Arlington. My family thought it was just an empty building. The situation changed from family drama to a government problem in 1 second. My secret phone line made a special sound. I picked it up right away. Director Morrison's voice was very sharp. He didn't sound like he was celebrating the holidays. He told me, "The unauthorized transaction involving the Arlington estate has been flagged by the monitoring system." I told him, "I have just been notified of the sale by the trustees during a holiday gathering." Morrison was quiet for a second. He reminded me of the things my parents had ignored. That house was a registered federal sensitive compartmented information facility, or SCIF. It was part of my safety rules as the Undersecretary of Intelligence. It was a secret place for handling top-secret data. It was protected under the Defense Production Act. It was also officially registered with the Department of State. Legally speaking, that house was an extension of federal property. By selling it to a private group for $4,800,000, your parents didn't just break the law, Morrison said. They started a national security emergency. He told me the sale was automatically canceled by the government, but the act of selling it was a crime. Federal agents were moving out right now. This wasn't about a house anymore. It was about someone selling a government secret. Morrison said agents were already driving to my parents' big apartment in Manhattan to get the managers and take all their papers and computers. I hung up and looked at my reflection. My family had spent years making fun of my job and my car. They thought I was a loser. They had no idea that while they were acting rich, I was the one with the keys to a world they weren't even allowed to know about. Director Morrison's voice came through the secret speaker again. It was the final blow. The kind of news that turns a family problem into a national disaster. He told me that the investigation into the buyer, Meridian Property Holdings, was finished. My father had called them smart investors back at the dinner table. He had talked about how fast they were and how they paid in all cash. He told me that was just how business worked. He didn't see any of the warning signs because he was only thinking about that $960,000 management fee. But Morrison's report was based on facts, and it was devastating. Meridian isn't a group of people who flip houses, Morrison said. They are a complicated shell company connected to a foreign energy cartel. By finishing that sale, my parents hadn't just committed real estate fraud or violated the Foreign Missions Act. They had actually helped corporate spies. They had handed over the keys to a secured federal intelligence hub to a foreign enemy. The air in my apartment felt heavy. It smelled like electricity and old coffee. I stared at the screen, looking at the charts Morrison sent me. It was a mess of offshore bank accounts that went from the cartel back to the company my father helped set up. My father, the big builder, and my mother, the social leader, were now the main targets in a federal spying investigation. That $960,000 they were so happy about was no longer just stolen money. It was now officially money made from a crime against the country. This was the final twist that took away any chance for them to fix things. They weren't just greedy. They were a danger to everyone. Their arrogant idea that I was too stupid to manage my own life had led them to put national security at risk just for a 20% cut. I looked at a photo on my desk of our family at a summer party. Everyone was smiling. I realized I didn't feel any sadness. I didn't want to call them and warn them. I felt like a scientist watching something blow itself up. They believed they were the masters of the world, but the real world was about to show up in 3 black SUVs. The 9 a.m. wake-up call didn't happen with a scream. It happened with the sound of tires on the driveway and the low hum of 3 black SUVs pulling up to my parents' private entrance in Manhattan. I watched through the big glass windows as men and women in dark suits got out. Their badges caught the morning sun and looked very bright. Inside, my father and mother were still wearing their silk robes, still feeling proud from Christmas. They looked out at the cars, and their confusion quickly turned into sharp fear. "Sandy, what is this?" my mother screamed. Her voice was very high, the way it got when the maids were late. "There are people on the lawn. Call your office and fix this with your little government job right now." I didn't move an inch. I didn't even look at her. I just finished my cup of coffee. The front door wasn't just opened. The agents bypassed the locks. Special Agent Walsh walked into the living room with the kind of power that makes old money look fake. My father tried to stand up. He tried to act like the big boss he used to be when he tried to scare me for 30 years. "Do you have any idea who I am?" he yelled. His face was turning very red. "This is a private home." Agent Walsh didn't even blink. She didn't look at him at all. She looked right at me and gave a quick, professional nod. "Ma'am, Undersecretary Sandy, the area is secure," she said. "We have the warrants to take all electronic devices and bank records related to the illegal sale of the Arlington Sky. The silence that followed was total. It was the sound of a family legacy disappearing. My father's arm dropped. My mother's glass of expensive orange juice fell from her hand and broke on the marble floor. They looked at me, then at the agents, then back at me. To them, I was the failing worker, the boring daughter who drove a 7-year-old Subaru. But the truth was right in front of them, and it was wearing a federal badge. "Undersecretary," my sister whispered from the stairs. Her expensive robe suddenly looked like a cheap costume. "Sandy, please," my father said. His voice was shaking. He didn't look arrogant anymore. He just looked pathetic and small. "We didn't know it was a mistake. We will give the money back. Tell them it's fine. Tell them we are family." I stood up and walked over to him. I felt the weight of 4 years of secrets and 30 years of being ignored. "Family doesn't sell your home without asking you, Dad," I said. My voice was very calm. "Family doesn't take a $960,000 fee from your life. You broke federal law because you thought you knew more about my world than I did. You lived in a fantasy where I was the weak part of your business. Now I am choosing reality over your fantasy." The power had completely shifted. As the agents took them toward the SUVs to ask them questions, I watched them realize that their status and their money were nothing in the world of national security. This was fair justice. By letting the investigation happen, I wasn't just punishing them. I was protecting the intelligence world. I was building a future where my work and my value could never be traded away again. 6 months later, everything had calmed down, but we didn't talk anymore. My parents were on 2 years of probation. Their business licenses were gone, and no one in their social circle would talk to them. My sister and her husband were cut off from the family money, which was taken to pay the government fines. I didn't celebrate that they lost everything. Business doesn't need joy. It just needs the numbers to be right. I was made an ambassador to a major country shortly after the case closed. Standing on the balcony of my new home, looking at a city where my work actually mattered, I felt peaceful. I realized that many of us spend our lives waiting for our families to see how much we are worth. But your value isn't something for others to trade. It isn't a bill they can cancel or an item they can sell. If you are in a situation like this, remember that forgiving someone isn't always about making up. Sometimes it's just the way to get away from their expectations. You don't need their permission to be great. You just need the heart to stop playing a small part in a story they wrote for you. Owning your own soul is the only success that matters. If you've learned that your worth isn't for sale, share this with someone who needs to be strong today. Subscribe for more stories of justice.